Some wishes don't give you what you want, they give you exactly what you asked for, and that's the problem. Some wishes don't give you what you want, they give you exactly what you asked for. And that's the problem. The White family didn't believe in curses, not really, not until the paw was in their hands. It was small, dry, twisted, like something that should never have been kept. They were told it could grant 3 wishes, but every wish came with a cost. Not a warning, a certainty. At first it felt like a joke, a strange object, a strange story, until they made the first wish. £200. The next day, there was a knock at the door. And everything changed. W. W. Jacobs published The Monkey's Paw in 1902. It is one of the most imitated horror stories ever written, and one of the most misunderstood. People remember the wishes, the twist, but the thing that makes this story endure is not the supernatural, it is the family. An ordinary, decent family who reach for something they haven't earned and discover that the universe charges interest. The story opens on a wet, cold night, the kind of night that makes a house feel smaller. Mr. and Mrs. White and their grown son Herbert are sitting by the fire, and they are expecting a guest. Sergeant Major Morris, an old friend, a man who has spent 21 years in India and come back with stories. Morris arrives with rain on his coat and something in his pocket. He tells them about the places he has seen, the things he has witnessed, and then, reluctantly, he tells them about the paw. A monkey's paw, dried and mummified, spelled by an old fakir, a holy man, who wanted to prove that fate ruled people's lives, that those who interfered with it did so to their sorrow. 3 wishes, 3 separate men could each have 3 wishes from it. Morris was the second owner. He goes quiet when they ask what he wished for. He goes quieter still when they ask about the first man. The first man's 3rd wish was for death. Morris throws the paw on the fire. He wants it destroyed. He has had his 3 wishes and he wants the thing gone. But Mr. White is faster. He snatches it from the flames. Morris warns him. His face changes. He tells White that if he keeps it, he must wish for something sensible. And even then. He doesn't finish the sentence. He doesn't need to. The warning is not about the paw. It is about what people become when they believe they can change the terms of their own lives. After Morris leaves, Herbert laughs and suggests they wish for £200. Enough to pay off the house. A modest wish. A sensible wish. Mr. White holds the paw. He speaks the wish. And the paw moves. It twists in his hand like a snake. He drops it with a cry. Nothing happens. The fire burns, the wind blows. Herbert makes another joke. They go to bed, slightly embarrassed, slightly relieved. The paw sits on the mantelpiece like an ugly ornament. In the morning, the world is ordinary. Bright. The night before feels distant and foolish. Mrs. White laughs about it over breakfast. Herbert leaves for work at the factory, Moore and Meggins, as he does every day. And then, in the afternoon, a man comes to the door. He is well dressed, hesitant. He says he is from Moore and Meggins. He says he has been asked to come. He says he is sorry to intrude. He doesn't say it directly. He circles it. He talks about the company, about regret, about wishing to convey sympathy. Mrs. White begins to understand before the words arrive. You can feel it in Jacob's writing, the way understanding moves through her body before it reaches her mind. Herbert is dead. Caught in the machinery. The man from the company says it carefully, clinically. Herbert was caught in the machinery and there was nothing they could do. The company wishes to present a certain sum as compensation, not an admission of liability, just a gesture, a token of their consideration. Mr. White asks how much. The man tells him. £200. Jacobs does not describe grief. He does not need to. The space between the wish and the payment is the entire horror. £200. Exactly what they asked for, delivered by a mechanism so ordinary that the poor cannot even be blamed. An accident, a factory, a compensation payment. Everything has a rational explanation. Everything except the timing. Was the poor real, or was the wish just a coincidence followed by grief? The story never confirms either, And that is the knife edge it balances on. If the poor is real, the world is cruel in a specific mechanical way. If it isn't, the world is cruel in a random, indifferent way. Neither answer is comforting. Days pass. The house is quiet. The kind of quiet that fills rooms where someone used to be. Mr. and Mrs. White move through the days like people underwater. And then, one night, Mrs. White sits up in bed. She has an idea, and the idea is terrible. The poor. There are 2 wishes left. She wants Herbert back. She says it plainly, the way grief strips language down to its bones. Wish him back. Mr. White resists. He remembers Morris's face. He remembers the paw twisting in his hand. He remembers the first man's 3rd wish. But grief is stronger than memory, and a mother's grief is stronger than caution. She insists. She begs. She demands. And because he loves her, and because he too wants to undo what was done, he picks up the paw. He wishes. Nothing happens. They wait. Minutes pass. Mrs. White goes back to bed. Mr. White sits in the dark, listening to the clock tick. And then, a knock. Quiet at first, a sound you could explain away as the wind. But it comes again, and again. Louder. Mrs. White cries out. She runs for the door, fumbling with the bolt, the chain. Herbert, her boy, he has come home. Mr. White does not move, because Mr. White remembers what his wife has chosen not to think about. Herbert has been buried for 10 days. Herbert was so badly mangled that he was identified by his clothing. Whatever is on the other side of that door is not the boy who left for work that morning. It is what the paw has made of the wish. Exactly what was asked for. The knocking grows louder. Mrs. White screams for her husband to help her with the bolt. She cannot open it alone. The old bolt is stiff, rusted. She wrenches at it. Mr. White is on his knees, searching the floor, searching in the dark for the paw. He finds it. The bolt clicks. The door begins to open. He makes the 3rd wish. The knocking stops. Mrs. White opens the door. There is nothing there, just the road, the lamppost, the cold, quiet night. Empty. Jacobs never tells you what the 3rd wish was. He doesn't need to. You know, and the knowing is worse than any sentence could be. The Monkey's Paw is not a story about magic. It is a story about the distance between what we want and what we are willing to pay. The Whites asked for money. They asked for their son. They asked for mercy, and each wish was granted, precisely, mechanically, without cruelty and without kindness. The paw does not punish, it fulfills. The horror is in the fulfillment. Fate is not a system you negotiate with. The cost is always there. It is simply deferred until you cannot bear it. The first owner wished for death. We never learn what he wished for first. We don't need to. Some wishes don't give you what you want. They give you what you deserve. And the door is always empty.